that a large part of our test market was already at school. Remember, our test segment was MBA students. We were at school, so we could very easily try out new concepts, try out new products, get instant feedback both from faculty and students, and then roll out the end result very, very quickly. The 2000, middle of 2000 or early 2000, when we got incubated in California, we moved. And that's our apartment complex in Santa Ana, just a short ride away from Disneyland, which brings me to another interesting theme. School was unreal. It was unreal in the sense that there was this huge, amazing reality distortion field around you, which basically said that whatever you could think of, if you could put that on a piece of paper, it would become real. And now think about the timeline. This is 1999. This is the turn of the century. This is the peak of the dot-com boom. If you had a business plan in the US, in California, it was very easy to get it funded. So nobody would stand up and say, कि ये नहीं हो सकता. Almost everybody you met would say, why not? Almost everybody you met would stand up and say, there's only one way to find out, and that is to give it a shot. So give it a shot. So in California, at the end of the dot-com boom, the business finally failed. And it failed in or for a wide variety of reasons. But, and I'll not go into the reasons why it failed, but I'll go into the fact that what were some of the highlights that came out from that experience. So my favorite memory from the years of that venture is a pitch that we made to the third largest bank on this planet. So as part of the work we were doing, we got an opportunity to pitch to Sakura Mitsui Bank and to Toyota Corporation in one room in Tokyo. And in that one room in Tokyo, I think we spent about 2 hours with both entities for one of the largest projects that I have bid for ever in my life. And the 4-month period that preceded this pitch, in which we made the contact, in which we understood what the primary requirement was, in which we figured out who the power players were, in which we figured out how to get to them, and finally put together the pitch. When we flew across the Pacific from LA to Tokyo, when we went in to Sakura's headquarters, did the pitch and came out, is one of my fondest memories from this entire debate. Other than the Sakura pitch, the next big memory that comes to me when I look back at Avicina is that towards the end, when everything was falling apart, I'm not sure if you can see that, so I don't have a laser pointer, but right where towards you see the first arrow in that pool, right by a complex, that's the pool where I drowned. No, drowned. Well, technically I didn't drown because I'm still standing in front of you, but I had a very, very bad scare. I was learning how to swim. This is late February. It was about 8 o'clock in the evening. There was nobody around. There's not a lifeguard. That was the thin end of the pool, or a less deep end of the pool. And on this side, you had the chunk that was about 8 feet deep. So when I finally pulled myself out to the edge, and I'm wheezing, I'm coughing water out of my mouth, I'm thanking Allah, thank you very much, aapne bacha liya. The first thought that came to my mind was that I have a wife and I have a child who's 4 years old. I have no insurance, health or life. I have no money. I have $100,000 of debt from my school tuition. I have another $30,000 of credit card debt that I've accumulated as I have run Avicina over the last 2 years. And if I hadn't made it out of that pool, this is all that Fazia and Amin would be left with. So it took that drowning to break the reality distortion field around my head. It took that drowning for me to finally look around myself and realize that, Jawwad, there is a chance that this is not going to work out. This is February. It took another 2 months for the venture to finally fail. It took another 2 months for all of us to decide that it was time to say goodbye. It's time to say goodbye to California. It's time to say goodbye to Avicenna. It's time to say goodbye to my dreams. Which brings me to my next big question, is whenever I tell the story, the first question that comes up is, what was the most painful moment when you went under? It was about a week later, so I walked away. We've decided to shut it down. I am busy consigning all Avicenna-related material to the darkest corner of my storage closet. And I see an update from Columbia Business School. And the update says that there's a kid in the school who's in his final year who's raised enough money to buy an Airbus so that he can run a single plane airline that will run a dedicated business class service between New York and London. And I think that was the end of it. At that stage, at that mindset, the last thing I wanted to hear was, or read, was about somebody else's success. All I wanted to read was about failure. I wanted to read about pain. I wanted to read about suffering. I didn't want to look at people who had done well in life. I wanted to look at people who had failed just like me so that I could be comfortable with the fact that despite the MBA, despite the computer science degree, despite being an actuary, despite the experience, I was not the only loser in town. What came out? Well, I think first of all, a total system reboot is a great time for you to look inside yourself and find out who you really are and who you want to be, where you want to be, what you're comfortable with, what you're not comfortable with. So that helped. Over the next 5 years, that turned out into a book. And that book tells the story of both Avicenna as well as alchemy, the next story that comes up. I think Adil said this earlier. We run businesses because we believe we are different, or we believe that the way we would run things is different from how it's done today. I think that's the primary motivator for most entrepreneurs. So that was mine. We run businesses because we don't want to be part of the herd. And finally, we run businesses because we don't want anybody else to define the boundary around our life, our choices, and our decisions. And as long as we are clear in our minds that this is the primary motivator and the driving factor behind our choices and our decisions, I think we will do very well. Success is not measured in wealth. It's not measured in sales or revenues. It's measured in two primary elements. The first is the level of control you have over your life and the flexibility of making your own choices. I think these are the most powerful lessons that came out of Avicenna for me as an individual. How am I doing time? 5 minutes? Okay. So that was the story of my first failure. In the end, I think it came down to the fact that I became very, very comfortable with the fact that people could point and say, there goes Jawwad. He's very good at failing. And he's done it a number of times. And I was all right. If you could look at me, point at me, call me a failure, introduce me as a failure, and I was comfortable, I was home. So now to episode 2. So episode 2 starts off in our lovely city, Karachi. And the primary lesson from episode 2 is that if you listen to country music, anybody? There's a gentleman by the name of Tim McGraw who sings a song that goes along the lines of Only in America. If you haven't heard that, go wherever you download music from, download Only in America and listen to that song. And the essence of that song is that if you have a dream and if you want to turn that dream into reality, the best place for you to go out and do that is in the US.